Hi, this is Jaya. In this video, we shall see the summary of the True Greatness of Kingdoms and Estates, an essay by Francis Bacon. In this essay, Bacon examines the characteristics which will qualify a nation as a truly great nation. And here he also warns a king not to overestimate or to undervalue the real worth of his state. And at the same time, he says, I know the right valuation and true judgment of the power of an estate is more subject to error. That is, you cannot find out the actual right valuation of any country or about its subjects. But he says you should not estimate the greatness of a state by its vast territory, if it has a huge landscape, or by its large population, or even by its riches, how much the money the people have, that is the financial position of the people, how many rich people are there in the country. All this will not determine whether your country is a great country. In this state, he reminds us that the kingdom of heaven is generally compared not to any great kernel or nut, but it is compared to the grain of a mustard seed. And why it is compared to the grain of a mustard seed is, it is the least grain, it is the smallest grain. But the mustard seed grain has the property and spirit to get up and spread fast. It will grow very fast. And so, in deciding the greatness of a country, one should see the capacity to grow, how the country has grown throughout the years. That only will decide the greatness of a country. And the greatness of a state is judged by the breed and disposition of the people. And a country may be well guarded towns, it may have good store of weapons and also an army. But all this will not help you to win a battle if the people there are stout and warlike. That is, if the people are not patriotic and if they are not willing to fight for the nation. Because such a nation will be a sheep in a lion's skin. Outwardly, when you see, you will think it's a lion, but inwardly, it will be only a sheep. And superiority of number will not be the deciding factor in a fight. When a wolf sees a number of sheep, it will not get scared. It will only be very happy because it has so many sheep to harvest. And the example of Alexander is there. He says Alexander was able to defeat 4,000 strong Armenian army of Tigranes with having only 16,000 Roman army with him. And so the number and courage need not go together. If you are courageous, even if you are only 16,000, you can defeat 4 lakh people. And money also cannot win wars. A king can buy so many soldiers paying money and bringing them to fight for him. But these people will not fight for the state. They will only fight for the money which they have received. They will not be loyal like the natives or the naturalized citizens of the country. Hence, Bacon concludes that the principal point of greatness in the state is to have a race of military men. That is, you have to train all the men to be patriotic and they should love their country and they should also be well versed in warlike. And more than the efficiency of the weapons or the riches of its command, it is the man who are using it will bring the winning to the state. It is not the number of weapons or the strongest weapons. It is the people who use these weapons. And it is the job of a good king to raise a militia of natives. That is, he should make all the native people good and valiant soldiers. And the Bacon also advises kings not to put heavy taxation on the people, because taxes must be levied by concert. That is, people also should agree that this is a reasonable tax. And heavy taxes not only make people unhappy, but also have a crippling effect on their moral, their love for their country. And people generally who are overlaid with taxes can never be valiant and martial. One cannot be an ass as well as a lion. You can either be a lion or an ass. You cannot be both. And there should be a healthy proportion between the nobility and the common man. That is, a number of people who are in the noble, that is in the king's family, and in the common man. Where there are too many nobility, that is high percent of nobility, in that state the common man will be reduced to serfdom because they need people to work for them. And the gentlemen are like thick trees which do not allow the growth of clean underwood. That is, these noblemen will not allow the common people to come up because they need them to work for them. and therefore whatever good is in the state, they will take it only for themselves, and they will be nothing for the common man. And this will make the common man to lose spirit, and he will become base. And in that state there will be a great population, but the strength will be very little. And it is the common people who make up the infantry, and they are the nerve of an army. And compared to France, England has far better army, though it is less than France, both in territory and population. So England is more stronger than France, even though the land of England is very small and even the population is very less. And Bacon also gives the credit to Henry VII for effecting measures which helped the peasantry to live in a very convenient plenty and in no hard condition. And if they are more slaves, then will be penury of military forces. And Bacon wants kings who have ambitions to expand their kingdom to also encourage liberal nationalization of strangers. That is, if they are going to conquer another country, they should make them feel that they are also natives of their country, and not as though they are captured ones. The empire of Nebuchadnezzar stood firm for a long time because there was liberal naturalization of aliens. The Spartans were invisible so long as they had a limited empire till their country was small. But once they expanded their empire, they found it very difficult to rule because they made the people whom they conquered to feel that you are conquered and we are ruling you. And these natives alone couldn't rule such a large empire. And later on, this helped to the disintegration, that is, they lost the empire. Whereas when you see the Romans, they treated the people of the regions which they conquered as their own citizens, and these people also started believing that we are also Romans, part of the Romans, and they in fact became natives of the Romans. So there was no difference between the natives and the conquered. Everyone had that patriotism and they were willing to fight for the Romans. And Bacon believes that sedentary and indoor activities are contrary to military disposition. That is, if people are not active, if they are not given training to perform in the war, they will become dull. And if the military disposition of the people is to be preserved, it is better that the natives are not engaged in sedentary activities. That is, if you want your people to perform well in the war, to fight for the nation, that you should not leave the people to be quiet without any activity. In Sparta and Rome, they employ slaves for these jobs. Since slavery is not accepted in Christendom, it is better to leave these jobs to aliens. And as for the natives, their principal occupation should be like you should make the people to get engaged in tilling the ground. They should become free servants, that is, they can go to another land and work for them. And they must make handicrafts which will make men strong, and those must be manly arts apart from the professional soldiers, that is, apart from the military training which they should undertake. And truly, he says, great nations must always be in a state of military preparedness. If you are a great state, anytime people, your enemies will attack you. So you should be alert, and all the people must be well trained in military so that they can fight for their nation. And at the same time, they should not hesitate to declare war when there is a just cause. If you have a good cause, then you should not hesitate to wage war on another country. And they should be sensitive to wrongs. They should see around if anything is going wrong, immediately they should react, and they should not sit too long upon a provocation. And they should provide aid to their allies. Definitely they should help their allies who are in trouble. At the same time, Bacon is also against waging war for unjust reasons. And for this, he gives the example of the Romans, where they made a war for the liberty of Greece, and the Spartans and the Athenians was just to pull down the democracies as instances of unjust wars. And he says that nobody can keep his body trim without exercises. Same way, a nation will not be trim and fit without wars. But just and honorable war is the one which will give true exercise for a state. And if you're going to sit for peace, and if you're not going to put people into war, then manly people will also get corrupted in their manners. And he says mastery of the sea is the real asset. A country which rules the waves will rule the whole world. And it is the naval battles that have decided the destinies of the nation. And then he cites the example of Battle of Actium, which sealed the fate of Antony. And he says if only Turks had won the naval battle of Lepanto, history would have been different. So, a state which aspires to become a superpower must have superior naval powers. And Bacon also advises kings to suitably honor and reward the generals and soldiers who perform well in the war, because these are the tokens of appreciation which will inflame all men's courage. And they should not think that they win wars for themselves and for their sons, but everyone should fight for their country, says Bacon, and he ends the essay here. If you have anything more to add on to what I've said, please write it in the commentary box. Hype this video so that many of them can see the video. Like the video, share it with your friends, and if you have not subscribed my channel, please subscribe and support. Thank you.